Hey, welcome back. We're going to make a bolt and a nut, kind of a long drawn out way, not necessarily dimensionally correct, but there's going to be several different items that we're going to apply today. Helixes, we're going to create some planes, we're going to create some swept cuts, some revolved cuts, a few other things on here where we create a plane on a helix or a curve from curve, and we're going to extend the cut further out, not necessarily putting a tangent line on it, but let's go ahead and get started. So make sure that you've got your SolidWorks opened up, and we're going to create a part. It's going to be in inch, pounds, and seconds, so we're going to get going. We're going to create an extruded boss base on the top plane. Start with a standard circle by center. We're going to start on the origin. Diameter of this, we're going to try to make like a half 13 bolt, so let's go to 0.5. I'm going to exit my sketch, and let's give this 2.5. So we got just a shaft. This is where we're going to put our threads on a little bit later. Let's go ahead and put a hex head up on the top of this. So let's go ahead and create another extrusion up on this very top surface. And I want to use a polygon. Make sure that you are on 6 sides. I'm going to use the inscribed circle just to dimension it, pull it out, place it. So smart dimension, I don't really want to pick one of the flats or across the flats. I'm going to pick the circle that it gives us, this construction circle. I think it's 13/16, so I think it's 0.812 and a half, but we're going to go 13 divided by 1/6. So that's going to give us our size. Problem is we don't have this thing locked down orientation wise or rotational wise. Pick one of your lines and let's make it horizontal, and now we are fully defined. Down here, double check it, exit our sketch. We got an extrusion started. I think a head on this is between 330 and 360, so let's make it 0.35, and now we have a hex head. Fairly ugly hex head, so we need to create a revolve cut up here on the top to kind of put the radius up here. I'm going to show you how to create a plane, and we're going to mirror across that plane as well. So let's select revolve cut. It's asking what face or plane. I should have selected it to begin with, but I want to make sure that I select the front plane since it's going to go all the way out to this outer edge. I'll show you what we're going to do there. So Control 8 makes it normal to us. I'm going to use a center line and start from the origin, just pull it straight up to the top and let it snap midpoint. So that one's fully defined. Go grab a regular line. I'm going to draw a line here and then here. The next thing I want to do is a 3-point arc. So I'm going to select it, place it on this end point and this end point. I want to make sure I pull it this direction, not down here, not way up here, but just in this general area. So we need about 3 dimensions on it, and then we're going to position this thing. So smart dimension, I'm going to say this is 0.12, and this vertical line I'm going to give it 0.06, and then the radius itself, let's give it 0.3. Alright, so this thing is just hung out here. I need to move it to this point and this point. A couple ways I can go about doing it. I can add relations, or I can just grab this end point, click, hold down, move down and let it snap, and then release it. And notice the sketch turned completely black. Our dimensions are fully black. Construction lines black. Look down to the bottom right. We're fully defined. That's what I'm shooting for. So we exit our sketch. So this revolve is going to remove that material, and let's go ahead and accept it. So it looks a little bit more like a hex head bolt. Problem is I don't have it on the other side, and I want it on the other side. So I'm going to create a little bit of reference geometry. So I'm going to select a plane. Now I want a bisector plane. I want it in the middle of this in case I change the size of this head later on. I want to come pick this top flat surface, and then the second surface I want to pick is the bottom of our hex. And now notice they put a plane right in the middle of that, bisecting those two faces. So what we can do now is, this is still in the cache. Notice it's still baby blue. I come up and I select mirror. It says mirror face or plane. That is the one that we want. And then the features that I want to mirror is this cut that we just had. It gives me the preview if you have full preview selected, and then we accept it. So that's the beginnings of our hex bolt. Now I like turning or hiding my planes and things just to kind of ease up on my graphics card. So I'm going to hide that, Now down at the bottom, if you're going to cut threads on something, typically you're going to have a chamfer down here to facilitate the entry point of your thread. So let's go up and grab a chamfer command. It should be housed underneath the fillet. So I'm going to select chamfer. I'm going to make it a 0.06, and then I want to pick this bottom edge, roll it around. I've got full preview selected, so I want to look at that. I'm pretty happy with it, so I accept it. Now this is where we're going to get into something that's a little bit new. Well, I'm going to create a sketch on this bottom surface down here. So I click on the surface, the flyout comes up, and then it's going to ask me if I want to create a sketch. I do, so it's Control 8 and normal. Now I'm going to come up and grab a circle the center, start on the origin. I'm going to pull it out. I don't care how big it is, I'm going to control how big I want it. Now the minor diameter of this I think is 27/64. So I picked the circle. I think it's 0.421, but 27 divided by 64, yeah, 421. We now have a fully defined circle here. So I'm done with this sketch. So I exit my sketch. I'm above here. We know that it's fully defined. There's no minus sign out here. And now what I want to do is I want to insert a curve. So come up to the Insert tab, Insert, Curve, Helix or Spiral. Now it's asking where we want it driven from, and it's the existing sketch. Now if this is 13 threads an inch, so we go 1 divided by 1/3, and that's going to give us a pitch of 0.07692. So every inch that we go, there's going to be 13 revolutions. Let's give this thing, say, 26 revolutions. So that's going to give us 2 inches of thread. So let's go ahead and accept it. So now we have a helix for another sketch to travel around. Let me go back to our curve just to verify something. I also have a start angle of 180 degrees. So I know that on our planes, typically we're going to be 90 degrees apart. And so 0, 180, or 90 and 270 would work, so we can actually use the planes that the program gives us. So let's go ahead and accept this. I want to create a plane. No, I just want to use one of the planes that we have existing. So our front plane, as I roll this thing around, looks like that's not the front plane. So our right plane, notice this right plane is where the end point of our helix is. So I want to use the right plane, and I want to do that. I want to create a plane. First reference is the helix, and the next reference is the end point of the helix. So now I've got a plane that is normal to that curve. That's the one that I actually want to use, not one of the ones that it gave us. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that. I'm going to create a sketch on this plane. So sketch that. So we're on that plane. I want to use the Control 8 command to draw normal, and then I want to create this kind of a V shape for our thread. This is not actual threading, so don't hold me to that. And then I want to draw just a reference line through here, through the middle. I drew a solid line here. I need to convert that. So if I'm going to convert it, I click on the line, and then this flyout pops up, and then there's a little tool that lets us change it to construction geometry. I also want this line to be horizontal, so I select it again, and our flyout pops up, and I make it horizontal. Your sketch will probably orient around. Now, smart dimension, let's give this an angle between here. We're going to give it 30 degrees. I also want to make the length of this 0.06, kind of based on our chamfer. Now, I want to add a relation, so I'll click out somewhere, add relations. I want our end point of our triangle and our new point of origin, and I want to pierce those. So now we're fully defined, and we can exit our sketch. So what we intend on doing is taking this profile and sweeping around here and removing material. So we exit our sketch, come to the Features tab, and we want to select Swept Cut. Now when we look at the sweep cut, it's asking what profile that we're going to want. So the profile that we want to cut is that. And then the path that we're going to want to use is the helix that we created earlier. It's going to give us a preview, and we want to accept it. Now, one of the problems that we have, if we were turning this on a lathe or something, there's just this abrupt stop up here. I'm going to do a little quick and dirty trick to get rid of that. So let's create an extruded cut. I want it on this face that we terminated our sweep with. Then I'm going to grab a line. Let's go ahead and go Control 8. That way we're kind of looking at it normal to everything, so it makes it a little bit easier on drawing. So come up and grab a regular line. We'll start it down here. Just going to pull it out, and then I'm going to come in. Now my sketch is all sorts of out of whack, so I can drag it around. It's really going to be kind of difficult to define, but let's go ahead and add some relations. Come up to Display Delete, and then right here we've got the Add Relations. Make sure we select it. This line right here where the two surfaces converge, we want to pick it. We want to pick one of the lines that we drew, and we want to make those two collinear. And what that is basically saying is that those two lines are the same line. So we want to do the same thing on the other side. Pick the edge and our line, and let's make it collinear as well. I'm going to give this an arbitrary dimension of maybe 0.08, and that way I know that I'm fully defined. We've got a little bit of logic in here, so I'm going to rotate this thing around where we see what's going on, and then when we exit our sketch, it's going to cut this thing through, and we want to cut it through all. We don't have to worry about it again. Now we got this where it's kind of terminated out. I want to hide plane 2, so select it, hit the glasses. I'm going to add a little fillet up here just for aesthetic purposes. So instead of it being a chamfer, where you want to come up and we want to select a fillet, I want it to be fairly small, so let's make it 0.02, and I want to pick this edge right here and just accept it. So Control 7, put it in an isometric view, and that's kind of the bolt that we're looking for. The picture that we had a nut about halfway up it. So I want to come up and I want to create a plane. So let's go and grab some reference geometry, select plane. I'm going to pick this bottom edge down here. And now mine is off of the part. I want to flip the offset, and I want to give it a offset of maybe 0.5. So we've got a plane that's about halfway up in our part. Now our next extrusion that we're going to do is going to be the hex nut itself. But I don't want to merge these two because we'll end up with one piece. So let's make sure that we're on plane 3. We want to, or whatever plane yours is called, you may have a different number. We want to create an extruded boss. I'm going to use the Control 8 command. So select 3, sketch, Control 8. Now we have, it's oriented around. We want to use our polygon again. Come select polygon, 6 sides, come out, let's pull it out like this. Don't be concerned with the size, use your escape key. Smart dimension, we want to pick the circle itself, and I believe that's going to be 0.75 or 3/4 of an inch. Alright, so it rotated around, but now problem is we don't have a rotation locked. So I'm just going to come down and pick one of the almost horizontal lines and make it horizontal. Took a little while, but we've made it horizontal, so we're fully defined here. Now we have this sketch that's 1/2 inch up from the bottom, and we want to create our extrusion. So come to the Features tab, select Extruded Boss Base. I don't really want it headed downhill. I want it to go the other way, so I want to flip the direction over here. I want to select Reverse Direction. I also want to make sure that Merge Results is not picked. 0.35 is the same thickness that the top of our hex head is. I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and accept it. Now, same thing we don't really have a hole in the center of this. So let's go ahead and let's get our revolve cut first. So I'm going to come up to our front plane. Let's create a sketch. Control 8. Now I want to come up and draw the same thing that we did a little while ago. So line, a line, a line, and then I want a 3-point arc. I'm going to come from this end point to this end point, place it here. Smart dimension. This one was 0.12. I think this one was 0.06, and I think this was 0.3. Alright, so now remember how we moved this before. So I just come up and hit escape a few times, come grab this end point, drag it down here, and then place it on there. So that's defined, but we don't have anything to revolve this around. So let's come up and grab a center line, start on our origin, pull it up, and just let it snap to our little hex nut. We are still fully defined. I can exit our sketch, and I failed to select revolve cut beforehand, so we still had our sketch in there. Then I picked revolve cut, and that's what we want to end up seeing, is that right there. Alright, so now I want to mirror that across again. Let's come up and we want to create some reference geometry. So we want to go to reference geometry, select plane. I want to pick this flat surface, not this radius surface that we did earlier. I want to pick the flat surface. We want a bisector plane. Then I come down to the bottom and I want to select that plane as well. So we're fully defined. I accept it. And now we want to mirror. So that's the plane that we just created because it kept it in the cache. Now the feature that we want is the revolve cut, and it gives us that profile. So let's go ahead and do that as well. Now, we've got two bodies here. I failed to mention that just a moment ago. We have the hex nut, since we did not merge our results, and we've got the bolt itself. Let's come up to our solid bodies over here in the tree. We want to expand it out, and my bolt is actually named fillet. I want to go ahead and change that name of that just so I don't get them mixed up. So I'll come over and I click on the word itself, hesitate just a moment, and I click on it one more time, and it gives me the opportunity to change the name. So I'm going to call this bolt. Now I know that the other one is the nut, but we'll worry about that in just a moment. Now the bolt's going to kind of get in the way, so I want to hide this thing. So I'm going to click on this and hide it. And now we don't really have any hole or anything or any threads on the inside of this. I'm also going to hide these other planes. We can pull them back up if we need to, but I'm going to click on that and hide those. So I want to create a cut here. So let's come up and extruded cut. I want to select this flat surface on the bottom. I'm going to use my Control 8 command. And this is if we're going to drill and tap a hole in this. So put a circle right there. Smart dimension. I think we said earlier that it was 0.421. And now we have that, so we exit our sketch and we want to say through all. Alright, now we want a little bit of lead in here, so let's come up and put some chamfers on here. Let's make it 0.06. I can just pick this surface in here and it'll get both sides for me. So let's go ahead and do that and then accept it. So instead of having to pick an edge and then roll it around and pick the other edge, we pick the surface and it grabs both edges for us. So I'm going to use the Control 7 command just to kind of take a look at this. Now I kind of need to show the bolt again. So I'm going to show it. I want to create another sketch on this bottom plane. Actually, I don't have to show the bolt. So let's create a sketch on our top plane. Use the Control 8 command. I'm going to come grab a circle, put it on the origin, pull it out, smart dimension, and this is going to be 0.5 because we're trying to make 1/2 inch 13 threads. So now I have a 1/2 inch circle. So let's exit our sketch there. I want to insert curve, helix. I want to use the sketch that we just created. Still the same pitch, and we don't necessarily need 26 revolutions, but it's really not going to hurt anything. But my helix is going the wrong way, so I want to come over here to the tree, and I want to reverse the direction, and I want to accept it. Now's the time where I want to hide the bolt, so let's go ahead and hide it. So we only have our helix showing and our nut showing. We want to create some more reference geometry. Let's come up and grab a plane. The first reference is going to be the helix that we just did. Next reference is going to be the end point of the helix. We're now fully defined because this is going to be normal to the helix. So let's go ahead and accept it. I want to create a sketch on that plane, so let's select sketch, and then I'm going to use a Control-A command. And now I want to create the same thing that we did earlier, except it's going to be backwards. So I want to create our triangle, and then I want to create our line here in the middle of it. Now use the escape key a couple times. I want to pick this center line. I want to make it for construction. I also want to make it horizontal. Let's come up and grab Smart Dimension. This was a 60-degree included angle. Let's go ahead and make our distance 0.06. And now we want to place our endpoint right there so we can create a cut. So let's add a relation. We want to pick our point. Let's add relations. We want to pick our endpoint, and we want to pick our origin, and we want to pierce it. I'm sorry, not the origin, but the helix. So now we should be able to create a cut. So let's exit our sketch. So what we're looking for, go to Features tab up here at the top. We want to create another swept cut. So the profile that we want is going to be that triangle that we just drew, and then the path that we want is going to be our helix angle. So let's go ahead and accept that, and that is going to be the nut, and we want to hide this plane. We want to show the bolt, and that is going to be our nut and bolt. So now cut sweep 2 was the last feature that we had in this. So I want to click on it one time, hesitate, click on the writing again, and I want to call it nut. Use the Control-7 command to get us in an isometric. And now let's add some material to this thing, because it's really not much of anything right now. We have 2 solid bodies. So I want to come to material. I want to do a right selection, edit material. Let's just make it a 4340. Let's call it normalized. Apply and close, and that is going to be our nut and bolt. Now, one of the things that we need to do is we need to save these bodies out. So that's another reason for naming these two. So we know when we get ready to save these things out that we can do this. Now this is where you need to make sure that you are saving in a folder where you can access it. So I'm going to come over here to where it says solid bodies. I want to use a right mouse click selection, and I want to select save bodies. Now it's asking which bodies they are. I want to select, oh, I haven't saved it. So let's save it. I'm going to call it, let's just call it bolts. Alright, so now I want to come to the body. I want to right click. I want to save the bodies. Now notice it's got auto assign names, but since we really gave it a name, we want to kind of keep the same name as what we had before. So I collect both of those. I don't necessarily want to consume the bodies, but you can. If you consume them, they're kind of gone. If you don't consume them, they're still there, but you can always go back and edit this thing later. It becomes very problematic if you start misplacing things. So go ahead and accept that. So those are our two bodies that we have. If we come down here and hover over our part files that are open, the original file, the parts were eaten and consumed. Here's our bolt, and here's our nut. So they are separated. So we can actually go out and create an assembly with this. So let's do File. Let's go New. Let's go ahead and create an assembly. Now notice over here on the left hand side we have bolt. I really messed up. I should have called this thing something different. So I'm going to click on bolt, and then I hit my green check one time, and it's going to place it right where we modeled it. So I also want to insert a component. So I come up here, so I insert component. These are the ones that I have available to us. Now I can come over here and place it, and we can create some mates, or I can just use the green check, and that is going to place it where we actually modeled it. So that's your assembly of your nut and bolt. We're going to create a video file with this later on, so make sure that you save these.